Your mind is not a wild horse to be tamed by force. It is a realm, a temple, and a battlefield. And yet most people walk through life as if they have no authority over it, letting emotions drag them, letting impulses drive them, letting fear chain them. The Stoics knew better. They believed that mastering the mind is not just possible, it is essential. What use is strength if your thoughts are in disarray? What value is freedom if your mind remains in bondage? The Stoics taught that external control is meaningless without internal dominion. And so we begin here with the recognition that you are not your thoughts. You are the observer. You are the ruler within. The mind left unchecked will always pull toward comfort, distraction, ego, and fear. It reacts, clings, it worries. But a Stoic mind is trained, not numbed, not silenced. Trained, it feels everything without becoming. Enslaved by anything, welcomes thought without surrendering control. That is the task. Man is disturbed not by things, but by the views he takes of them. This simple truth reveals everything. The event doesn't destroy you. The interpretation does. The insult isn't the wound, it's your decision to wear it as pain. The delay, the loss, the rejection, none of it is inherently defeating. What defeats you is when your mind serves the emotion instead of guiding it. So what does it mean to control your mind? Doesn't mean becoming robotic or detached. It means training your perception like a warrior sharpens a blade. It means noticing your judgments and stripping them down. It's asking yourself, is this useful? Is this within my control? What virtue is being called for right now? Every day you will encounter a test. Someone cuts you off in traffic. A rude message arrives. Plans fall apart. These are not threats. These are invitations. They call you to step back and remember, your reaction is yours. Always yours. Control begins with awareness. Before the anger swells, before the fear tightens your chest, before the mind spins with 100 what-ifs, pause, breathe, observe. The Stoics trained themselves in this moment of pause. It is where freedom lives. Then comes discipline. Discipline not as punishment, but as practice. You choose what thoughts to feed. You don't fight the mind, you guide it. Like a wise parent guiding a child, you don't punish every wild thought. You redirect. You remind. You return. Again and again. Some days, the mind is a storm. That's fine. Let the wind howl, but don't let it blow you off course. Remember what you control: your will, your values, your perspective. You don't control what the world does, but you control how you see the world. And in that space between what happens and how you respond is your power. The Stoics called this the citadel within, a place untouchable by circumstance. And you build it not with walls, but with reason, virtue, and practice. Each moment you choose calm over chaos, focus over distraction, presence over anxiety, you lay another stone in that fortress. But control is not a destination. It is a discipline. The world will not stop testing you. Each test is a gift, because it gives you the opportunity to prove to yourself that you are not ruled by instinct. You are not a puppet of the moment. You are a philosopher in practice. So let today be your training ground. Let every irritation become your exercise. Let every fear become your lesson. You are not helpless. You are not your past. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who watches, chooses, and acts. Control your mind, not by force, but by understanding. Not by suppression, but by elevation. And one day, the storms that once knocked you down will feel like a breeze against the strength you've built inside. The mind loves to wander, to drift into the past with regret, or into the future with fear. It builds illusions, catastrophes, desires, entire worlds that don't exist. We get lost in them. We live in stories instead of reality. The Stoics called this the disease of the untrained mind. But what if you could anchor yourself in the present? What if you could meet each moment fully, without dragging the weight of yesterday or the worries of tomorrow? That is the essence of Stoic mental control, presence with clarity. To live in the present is not to forget the past or ignore the future. It is to stop being ruled by them. The present is where your actions live. state. It is where virtue takes shape. The mind wants to escape it because the present demands responsibility. But Stoicism brings you back again, and again to what is here now real. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, confine yourself to the present. Those 5 words contain a revolution, because if you can master the present, you master life. Anxiety fades, regret shrinks, and decisions become clearer. But clarity doesn't come passively. It must be practiced. Your mind will resist, will seek drama, distraction, validation. That's fine. Don't fight it with violence. Redirect it with reason. Say this is not useful. Say, this is not mine to control. Say, this thought does not serve virtue. Soon, you begin to develop mental habits, patterns of thought that serve you instead of sabotage you. You catch yourself spiraling and you pull back. Catch the inner critic and you silence it. Not by arguing, but by stepping aside and returning to what matters. The mind loves novelty, but wisdom loves repetition. So the Stoic repeats. Focus, return, anchor. You train like an athlete, but for the soul. Every day becomes practice. You start to realize mental control is not about dominating thought. It's about releasing your grip on the ones that don't serve you. You are not building a cage for your thoughts. You're building a compass. You are learning to point the needle back to virtue, to calm, to purpose. And when you do, your mind becomes a guide instead of a trap. There will be moments when your thoughts betray you, when you feel consumed by doubt. Envy, fear, don't panic, don't shame yourself. The Stoics fell too. What made them different is that they stood back. Up, they remembered their training. They returned to center. So ask yourself now, what thoughts are dominating your mind? Which ones elevate you? Which ones drain you? Which ones align with who you want to become? Control your mind is to choose. To choose not the easier path, but the higher one. To choose not every thought, but the right ones. And every time you make that choice, you reclaim another inch of yourself from chaos. Your mind is not your enemy. It is your arena. Every day, you train not for perfection, but for mastery. Control of the mind begins with the understanding that emotions are not commands. They are signals. Feelings arise, fear, anger, desire not because something is wrong, but because something is being interpreted. The Stoic doesn't seek to suppress these feelings. He seeks to interpret them correctly. Imagine you are standing in a storm. The wind is fierce, the sky cracks with thunder, but you are calm, because you know the storm is outside you. It cannot touch your core unless you open the doors. Emotions are storms of the mind. They roar, they surge, they demand reaction, but you do not have to open the doors. As Epictetus taught, it is not events that disturb us, but our opinions about them. If you feel jealousy, it is not the success of another that injures you. It is the belief that their success diminishes your worth. If you feel fear, it is not the unknown itself that terrifies it, is the belief that you cannot endure what might come. So the task is not to fight emotion, to examine it. To say, what belief is behind this feeling? Is it true? Is it useful? Is it aligned with virtue? The Stoics did not see emotions as enemies. They saw them as messengers. But they also knew not every messenger must be obeyed. The mind gains strength not through suppression, but through reflection. The ability to pause, to question, to choose your response, that is control. And that control grows every time you resist the urge to react blindly. Someone insults you. The old reflex is rage, defense, retaliation. But the Stoic pauses, asks, what part of me is actually harmed? My character, my values, or merely my pride? And in that question, the power of the insult dissolves. Because you cannot be insulted if you refuse to place value on the insult. A large part of mental control is learning not to take things personally. What others say and do is a reflection of them, not of you. Their moods, their projections, their judgments, these belong to them. The Stoic learns to walk through the world like a clean glass, letting the water of others pass through without staining. But this is not indifference, it is discernment. The controlled mind is not cold, it Clear, it still feels. It still cares. But it decides where to pour its energy. You do not owe a reaction to every provocation. You owe yourself peace. And this peace is built, piece by piece, with every practice. The practice of delaying your response. The practice of choosing silence over noise. The practice of questioning the first thought that arises. Over time, you become someone others cannot easily disturb. It's not because you're numb, because you are sovereign. Control is not about never feeling tempted. It's about recognizing the temptation and remembering what matters more. The Stoic does not pretend that they do not feel. They simply refuse to be ruled by feeling. When the desire for revenge comes, the Stoic asks, does this align with virtue? When the fear of loss arises, they ask, was this ever mine to keep? And the craving for approval appears, they ask, why do I need to be seen to be sure of my worth? In these moments, you do not conquer the mind by force. You win it back with reason, with clarity, with practice. Day by day, storm by storm, the mind begins to obey not the noise of the world, but the compass within. You become the master of your emotional life, not because you suppress your feelings, but because you choose your interpretation. And that, the Stoics taught, is the highest form of strength. The mind resists control because it craves comfort. It wants certainty. It wants ease. And yet growth lives in discomfort. It lives in friction, in doubt, in discipline. The Stoic understood that to train the mind, you must step into the fire. Stay there long enough to forge something new. Comfort dulls the blade of reason. When life is too soft, the mind forgets how to struggle well. And without struggle, there is no control, only reaction. This is why the Stoics deliberately sought hardship. Not because they were masochists, but because they wanted to be prepared. Prepared for loss, for failure, for insult, for temptation. Just prepared for life. They practiced poverty while possessing wealth. They imagined exile while holding status. They rehearsed death while still breathing. Why? Because they knew, when the real test comes, the untrained mind panics. The trained mind remains steady. Control does not come from avoiding discomfort. It comes from walking into it eyes open, breath steady, virtues intact. Think of the modern world. Endless distraction, constant comparison. A stream of noise designed to keep your mind reactive. If you do not take control of your attention, someone else will. And once they have your attention, they have your mind. This is not freedom. This is quiet slavery. So what does a Stoic do? He guards his mind like a fortress. He decides what enters. He discards what weakens. He meditates not with incense, but with intention. 5 minutes of stillness in the morning, a walk without a phone, a moment to ask, what am I thinking right now? These practices seem small, but they are. Bricks in the wall of your citadel. Each one reinforces your power. Not power over others, but power over yourself. Self-control is the rarest form of freedom. The freedom to say no when everything urges yes. The freedom to delay pleasure, to endure discomfort, to act with intention rather than impulse. To live on your terms even when the world demands you conform. But make no mistake, this freedom is costly. It requires vigilance, humility, repetition. The Stoic trains daily, not for glory, but for readiness, not for praise, but for peace. And in time, this training changes everything. You begin to see temptation and smile, knowing it cannot move. You face insult and respond with stillness. You encounter fear and nod not because it's gone, because it no longer decides. To control the mind is not to remove. Struggle it is to become skilled at facing it. And once you understand, this life becomes clearer. You stop chasing ease and start cultivating strength. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop fearing your thoughts and start guiding them like a river with banks. This is the Stoic path, not freedom from pain, but freedom from confusion. Not the absence of emotion, but the presence of mastery. And the first step is simple. Begin the practice. Begin the pause. Begin the question. Begin the path inward. There is no perfect moment to reclaim your mind, only the one you're in now. The uncontrolled mind is a slave not to others, but to itself. It obeys impulse, surrenders to doubt, and follows whatever desire or fear screams the loudest. But the Stoic mind is disciplined. It is sovereign. And sovereignty begins with understanding what is truly yours. The Stoics taught a principle that seems simple at first, but contains immense power. Distinguish what is in your control from what is not, and then commit to caring only about what is yours. Think about how much mental noise is generated by trying to control the uncontrollable, the opinions of others, the outcomes of your actions, the twists of fate, the judgments, the praise, the rejection, the failure, all things that belong to the world, not to you, but your beliefs. Your intentions, your character, your discipline, your response, these are yours. They are yours always, regardless of fortune, status, or circumstance. This separation, the inner from the outer, is the foundation of mental control. It turns a life of chasing into a life of choosing. It allows you to move through chaos without becoming chaotic. Because even when the external world spins, you do not. Imagine someone insulting you. The Stoic doesn't say, "How dare they?" The Stoic says, "Does this insult affect my virtue, my reason, my will?" And if it does not, then the insult is nothing more than air. Or imagine failure. A goal falls apart. The world calls it defeat. But you, if you acted with intention, with clarity, with effort, you do not call it failure. You call it training, because the outcome was never yours to hold. Only the process was. When you live this way, life becomes quieter, not because less happens, but because you no longer cling, you no longer grasp for control where it does not exist. You act with full force, but you let go of the result. You show up with presence, but you do not beg to be noticed. This is mental control, to live fully engaged, yet emotionally unentangled. You stop resisting reality and instead align yourself with it, not passively, but wisely. There is immense power in surrendering to what you cannot change, not as defeat, but as a strategy. The Stoic doesn't waste energy fighting the wind. They adjust the sails. They focus on their steering hand, their course, their virtue. As you move through life, ask yourself often, is this in my control? And if it is, engage fully. If it isn't, release it immediately and completely. This discipline frees you. It clears space to think, to act, to feel, without being ruled. Because now, you are not reacting to every gust of wind. Are sailing with intention. To control the mind, you must guard its focus. Let it dwell only where your power lies. Let it rest in action, not outcome. It's not popularity. In presence, not performance. Then, when the noise of life grows loud, you remain quiet. When others panic, you remain composed. When others chase, you remain anchored, because you have chosen your domain, and you rule it with clarity. The mind that masters this separation no longer lives at the mercy of the world, becomes, at last, free. The mind, like the body, must be strengthened daily, or it decays. And in a world filled with noise, distraction, and desire, your mental strength is constantly under attack. The Stoics knew this, and so they built routines, not of rigidity, but of reflection. They trained the mind the way a soldier sharpens his sword, not once, but always. One of their greatest tools was journaling, not as a record of events, but as a dialogue with the self. Each night they asked, what did I do well? Where did I fall short? What did I allow to control me and why? In these quiet reflections, they refined their clarity. Control of the mind doesn't happen in bursts of inspiration. The slow, deliberate, honest conversations you have with yourself every day. It is in the courage to examine your thoughts and ask, are these mine, or did I inherit them? Are these helpful, or merely habitual? Modern life teaches you to consume, to scroll, to numb. But the Stoic pauses, looks within. refuses to let the day pass without learning from it. Because a mind that is not examined becomes a mind that is not owned. So start small. Begin with 5 minutes of reflection. Ask yourself, without judgment, where did my mind go today? Did I feed it with virtue or poison it with distraction? Did I guide it toward, let it wander? Each answer reveals a path. Each day becomes a practice. Just as the body becomes strong through repetition, so too does the mind. Not by brilliance, but by discipline. The Stoics also practiced premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. They imagined what could go wrong, not to suffer twice, but to prepare. If loss came, they were ready. If failure appeared, they were not surprised. The controlled mind does not avoid difficulty. It walks toward it, prepared, practiced, and clear. This is not pessimism. It is armor. You do not cower from life's blows when you have already faced them in the mind. And when those imagined hardships arrive in reality, you respond not with panic, but with poise. But this preparation is not enough. You must also cultivate gratitude, not the hollow kind, but the fierce kind. The kind that says, even now, even in struggle, I am still breathing, still choosing, still capable of aligning with virtue. Gratitude is a form of control, because it shifts your focus from what's missing to what's available. And the mind that sees clearly is the mind that stays calm. So train your mind in 3 ways: reflection, preparation, and appreciation. Reflect daily, prepare often, appreciate deeply. These are not spiritual suggestions. They are practical tools. They sharpen the mind, steady the heart, and create an inner life that no external storm can touch. In this, you begin to notice something, that the world may remain chaotic, but you don't. Your peace is not dependent. Your calm is not conditional. Because you have earned it, built it, trained for it. And day by day, your mind becomes your ally, not your saboteur. You think with clarity, you choose with courage, you act with purpose. This is what it means to control your mind not once, but always. To control the mind is to control your story, because every moment the mind is weaving narratives about who you are, what others mean, what the future holds. These stories become your reality, your limits, your self-image. And if left unchallenged, they become your prison. But the Stoics knew the story can be rewritten. You are but a soul carrying a corpse, one Stoic said. And while the words are harsh, the meaning is profound. You are not your possessions, your status, your past. You are the choices you make now, the judgments you apply now, the direction you move now. The uncontrolled mind attaches to labels. Failure, victim, rejected, not enough. It finds identity in wounds. It mistakes pain for identity. But the Stoic strips all of that away. He says, you are not what has happened to you. You are how you choose to respond to it. Mental control begins when you stop believing every thought that appears in your head. Thoughts are not truth, they are offerings, possibilities. The Stoic doesn't accept them blindly. He interrogates them. He refines them. He replaces them with reason. When the mind says, I can't, the Stoic replies, is that a factor? Just fear wearing the mask of truth? When the mind says, they don't like me, the Stoic asks, and if they don't, does that diminish my virtue? When the mind says, this is unfair, the Stoic answers, yes. And now what? You see, mental control is not comfort. It's confrontation. Staring down your stories and saying, no more lies. No more passive acceptance. From now on, I write the narrative. And the new narrative is built on principles, not emotion. On virtue, not vanity. On values, not validation. You stop seeking permission to feel okay. You stop needing others to confirm your worth. You return again and again to this question. Am I acting with wisdom, justice, courage, and discipline? If yes, then the world can do as it pleases. Your story remains intact. Even in pain, the Stoic controls his framing. He doesn't say why. Me, he says. What opportunity lies inside this? Even in failure, he doesn't say, I'm broken. He says, now I begin again wiser. This is the mental shift that changes everything. You stop living as a passive observer of your thoughts. You become their sculptor, their editor, their master. But this mastery requires one final tool: detachment. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means clarity. You care deeply, but not desperately. You commit fully, but not obsessively. You love, but without possession. You plan, but accept change, because the mind that clings is the mind that breaks. But the mind that holds loosely can adjust, can endure, can thrive. So detach from your story, but not your purpose. Detach from your image, but not your integrity. Detach from outcomes, but not from action. Then your mind becomes a servant, not a saboteur, a tool, not a tyrant, lens, not a cage. You become free not because the world has changed, but because you have. The final test of mental control is not found in the moments of peace, but in the storms. When things fall apart, when fear rises, when plans fail, that's when your training reveals its depth. The Stoic is not judged by how well he talks about philosophy, but by how quietly he holds the line when chaos hits. He doesn't need the world to calm down to remain calm, because his center isn't out there. It's internal, trained, chosen, earned. And this center is built on its unshakable foundation: virtue. Virtue is not an abstract ideal. It's your compass. It's what keeps you from being ruled by emotion, enslaved by desire, or wrecked by fear.
Oh.
It gives your mind direction, purpose. Wait, without virtue, the mind becomes clever, but not wise, fast, but not focused,
But not.
clear. But with virtue, even a turbulent mind can become a tool for peace. So return to the four: wisdom, justice, courage, discipline. When the mind spirals, ask, what would wisdom say right now? When anger boils, ask, what does justice require of me? In this moment, when fear clutches your chest, ask, where is courage hiding? When temptation calls, ask, is this the voice of discipline or distraction? This is the highest form of control, not silence, but guidance, not suppression, but redirection. You don't kill the voice of fear. You walk beside it. You don't deny the pull of anger. You face it, and you choose again and again to act. From principle, not impulse. Control doesn't mean perfection. The Stoics failed too. They lost their tempers, felt envy, made mistakes. But what made them different is that they returned to practice, returned to virtue, returned to themselves. So let this be your practice. Return every day. The world will try to pull your mind away into gossip, into anxiety, into desire, outrage, distraction, illusion. Let it pull.
Let it pull.
And then return to the breath, return to reason, return to calm, return to presence, return to purpose. This is the Stoic way, not a single act, but a way of being. A commitment not to control the world, but to control the only thing you ever could, your own mind. And when you do, something shifts. Life doesn't get easier, but it gets clearer. You see what matters. You act with intention. You speak with weight. You walk with peace. You become unshakable, not because the storms stop coming, but because you've built yourself to stand through them. And that is true control.